The stagecoach lurched to a violent stop outside the dusty railhead in Cheyenne, Wyoming Territory, and Eleanor Thompson's heart hammered so hard she feared it might break through her ribs as she clutched her father's trembling hand and wondered if she had made the worst mistake of her life. It was August of 1878, and the summer heat bore down mercilessly on the high plains. Eleanor stepped down from the coach, her navy traveling dress already coated in a fine layer of dust from the long journey. She turned back to help her father, William Thompson, who moved slowly, his joints stiff from the cramped ride. At 62, he looked older than his years, his face weathered by hardship and illness. His hands shook slightly as he gripped her arm for support. "We made it, Papa," Eleanor whispered, trying to inject confidence into her voice though her stomach churned with anxiety. She had answered an advertisement from a rancher named Marcus Garrett, who sought a wife to help manage his household. In her letter, she had been honest about her situation, explaining that she could not leave her ailing father behind. Marcus had written back that he understood family obligations, but Eleanor worried he might change his mind upon seeing how frail her father truly was. William coughed, a rattling sound that made Eleanor wince. "You should not have brought me, Eleanor. I am a burden to you." "Never say that," she said firmly, though tears pricked at her eyes. "You are my father. You raised me alone after Mama died. I would never abandon you." The platform bustled with activity as passengers disembarked and porters hauled luggage. Eleanor scanned the crowd, searching for the man she had agreed to marry. Marcus Garrett had sent a photograph, showing a stern-faced man with dark hair and strong features, but she knew photographs could be deceiving. Her hands smoothed nervously over her skirt as she waited. "Miss Thompson," Eleanor turned toward the deep voice. The man approaching was taller than she expected, well over 6 feet, with broad shoulders that filled out his clean shirt and vest. His dark hair was slightly long, touching his collar, and his face was indeed stern, but his eyes held a surprising warmth as they met hers. He removed his hat respectfully. "Mr. Garrett," Eleanor said, her voice barely above a whisper. She had imagined this moment countless times during the 3-week journey from Pennsylvania, but nothing had prepared her for the reality of meeting the man she had promised to marry. Marcus's gaze shifted to William, who stood slightly behind Eleanor, leaning heavily on his cane. Eleanor saw something flicker across Marcus's face, concern perhaps, or was it regret? Her heart sank. "This is my father, William Thompson," Eleanor said quickly, her words tumbling out. "I know I mentioned him in my letters, but I understand if circumstances have changed. If you have reconsidered, Papa and I can find lodging in town until we can arrange return passage." Marcus studied William for a long moment, and Eleanor held her breath. Then the rancher stepped forward, extending his hand to the older man. "It is a pleasure to meet you, sir. Any journey from Pennsylvania at your age shows considerable strength of character." William shook his hand, clearly surprised by the warm reception. "I do not wish to impose on your generosity, Mr. Garrett." "Impose?" Marcus turned to look at Eleanor, then back to her father. "Mr. Thompson, you are Eleanor's family, which makes you my family now, too. You are as welcome at the ranch as she is." Eleanor felt something break loose in her chest, a tight knot of anxiety that had been lodged there since they left Pennsylvania. She blinked rapidly, fighting back tears. "You truly mean that?" Marcus met her eyes, and she saw nothing but sincerity in his gaze. "I do not say things I do not mean, Miss Thompson. A man who would turn away his bride's father is no man at all. My ranch is your home now, both of you." The simple declaration, spoken with such quiet conviction, moved Eleanor deeply. She had expected many things from this arrangement, a practical partnership, perhaps tolerance, but this immediate acceptance of her father touched something deep within her. "Thank you," she managed, her voice thick with emotion. "You cannot know what this means to us." Marcus nodded, then gestured toward a sturdy wagon waiting nearby. "Let us get your belongings loaded. It is a 2-hour ride to the ranch. I imagine you are both exhausted from your journey." As Marcus helped load their trunks, Eleanor noticed the care he took with her father, offering his arm to help William into the wagon seat, ensuring he was comfortable before assisting Eleanor. The rancher's hands were strong but gentle as he helped her up, and she felt a flutter of something unexpected, awareness perhaps, or the first stirrings of attraction. The ride out of Cheyenne took them across rolling grasslands dotted with sage and wildflowers. The landscape was so different from Pennsylvania's green hills and forests that Eleanor felt as though she had traveled to another world entirely. The sky seemed impossibly vast, stretching endlessly in all directions, and the mountains in the distance rose like jagged teeth against the horizon. Marcus drove the wagon with easy competence, occasionally pointing out landmarks. "That is Crow Creek," he said, indicating a line of cottonwoods in the distance. "It runs through the northern section of my property. The water stays cool even in summer, fed by snowmelt from the mountains." "How large is your ranch?" Eleanor asked, curious about her new home. 1,500 acres. I run about 300 head of cattle and 50 horses. It is not the biggest spread in Wyoming, but it is mine, free and clear. I have 5 men who work for me year-round, decent fellows. They live in the bunkhouse near the barn. Eleanor detected a note of pride in his voice, and rightfully so. She knew from his letters that Marcus had built his ranch from nothing, homesteading the land and adding to it over 12 years of hard work. "You have family in the area?" William asked, speaking up for the first time since they left town. Marcus's expression shifted, becoming more guarded. "My parents died of cholera when I was 19. I had a younger sister, Sarah, but she passed 5 years ago during childbirth. Her husband moved back east afterward, took their baby daughter with him. I have not heard from him since." "I am sorry," Eleanor said softly, understanding now why Marcus had sought a mail-order bride. He was alone in the world, just as she and her father had been alone after Eleanor's mother died when Eleanor was 12. "Life is hard out here," Marcus said simply. "But it is beautiful too. You will see." They crested a rise, and Eleanor caught her first glimpse of the ranch. The house was larger than she expected, a solid 2-story structure built of timber and stone, with a wide porch wrapping around the front. Several outbuildings dotted the property, including a massive barn, a bunkhouse, and various sheds. Corrals stretched out behind the barn, where horses grazed peacefully in the afternoon sun. "It is lovely," Eleanor breathed, and she meant it. The ranch had a sense of permanence, of being rooted in this wild landscape. Marcus glanced at her, and she saw a flicker of pleasure in his eyes. "The house needs a woman's touch. I built it hoping to fill it with a family someday, but that has not happened yet. Maybe now it will." The words hung between them, heavy with implication. Eleanor felt her cheeks warm. She was 24 years old, well past the age when most women married, but circumstances had never aligned for her. When her father's health began failing and their money ran out, she had seen the advertisement for a mail-order bride and made her choice. She wanted a home, stability, and perhaps, if she was fortunate, affection. Looking at Marcus now, at his strong profile and the capable way he handled the horses, she thought perhaps she might be fortunate indeed. As they pulled up to the house, 2 men emerged from the barn. They were both young, probably in their 20s, wearing dusty work clothes and curious expressions. "That is James and Samuel," Marcus said. "2 of my ranch hands. The others are out with the herd." He helped Eleanor and William down from the wagon, then called to the men. "James, Samuel, come meet Miss Thompson and her father." The introductions were brief but friendly. Eleanor noted the way both men tipped their hats respectfully and how they immediately offered to help William into the house when they noticed his difficulty with the steps. Inside, the house was neat but sparse, clearly lacking a woman's presence. The main room served as both kitchen and living area, with a large stone fireplace dominating one wall. Furniture was functional but comfortable, and everything was scrupulously clean. "I have 3 bedrooms upstairs," Marcus said, setting down Eleanor's smallest trunk. "The largest is mine, but I will move my things to the room at the end of the hall. You and your father can have the 2 rooms that share the landing." Eleanor turned to him, confused. "But we are to be married." Marcus met her eyes steadily. "We will be married, yes. The preacher is coming out on Saturday, 3 days from now. But until then, and after if you wish, you will have your own space. I will not rush you into anything, Eleanor. When and if you are ready to truly be my wife, you will let me know." The consideration in his words, the respect he showed her, moved Eleanor deeply. Many men would have demanded their marital rights immediately, regardless of her feelings. Marcus was offering her time, a chance to know him before committing fully to this new life. "Thank you," she said quietly. "That is very kind." "It is simply decent," Marcus corrected gently. "Now, let me show you to your room so you can rest. I imagine you are exhausted." Over the next 2 days, Eleanor began to settle into ranch life. She took over the kitchen, which Marcus admitted had been somewhat neglected, and started preparing proper meals for everyone. The ranch hands were pathetically grateful for her cooking, having subsisted on Marcus's limited repertoire of beans, bacon, and burnt biscuits. William seemed to improve slightly in the clean mountain air. He still tired easily and his cough persisted, but he had more color in his cheeks. Marcus set up a comfortable chair on the porch where William could sit and watch the ranch activities, and Eleanor often saw the 2 men talking, her father gesturing animatedly as he told stories from his younger days. Eleanor found herself watching Marcus more than she intended. He was up before dawn every day, working alongside his men, but he always made time to check on her and her father. He was patient when explaining ranch operations, answering her questions without condescension. She noticed the way the horses responded to him, how even the most skittish animals calmed under his steady hands. On Friday evening, the day before the wedding, Eleanor stood at the kitchen window washing dishes while Marcus sat on the porch with her father. Through the open window she could hear their voices. "You have built a good life here," William was saying. "Eleanor will be fortunate to have you as a husband." "I hope to be worthy of her," Marcus replied, "and of your trust in allowing her to marry me. She is all I have in this world." Her mother died bringing her younger brother into the world, and the baby died 3 days later. Eleanor was only 12, but she took over running our household like a woman grown. When my shop failed and my health began to decline, she worked as a seamstress to keep us fed. I have been nothing but a burden to her for the past 2 years. You are her father. Love is not a burden. Eleanor heard her father's voice crack with emotion. I worried she would never marry, never have a life of her own because of me. When she told me about your advertisement, I tried to convince her to leave me in Pennsylvania, to start fresh without an old man holding her back. But she refused. Then I am grateful for her stubbornness, Marcus said. A woman with that much loyalty and love in her heart is a rare treasure. Eleanor's throat tightened with emotion. She pressed her hand against her mouth to stifle the sob that threatened to escape. In that moment, something shifted inside her. This man, this rancher who had offered them both a home without hesitation, who treated her father with such respect and kindness, was becoming precious to her. Saturday morning dawned clear and warm. Eleanor woke early, her stomach fluttering with nervous anticipation. Today she would marry Marcus Garrett, would become his wife in truth. She had packed one good dress for the occasion, a sage green cotton with delicate lace trim that brought out her eyes. Her dark hair, usually pinned up simply, she arranged more carefully, leaving a few soft curls to frame her face. When she came downstairs, she found Marcus already dressed in his best suit, looking uncomfortable but handsome. His eyes widened when he saw her. "You look beautiful," he said simply, and the sincerity in his voice made her blush. "Thank you. You look very handsome yourself." The preacher arrived mid-morning, a jovial man named Reverend Peters who served several ranches in the area. The ranch hands cleaned up and gathered in the main room, along with a neighboring rancher and his wife who Marcus had invited. It was a small gathering, but it felt right to Eleanor. Her father stood beside her, his hand trembling slightly as he held her arm. "Are you certain, my dear?" he whispered. "It is not too late to change your mind." Eleanor looked at Marcus, standing tall and straight before the preacher, his eyes fixed on her with an intensity that made her breath catch. "I am certain, Papa." The ceremony was brief but meaningful. When Marcus took her hand, his grip was warm and steady. They spoke their vows clearly, Eleanor's voice only wavering slightly when she promised to love and honor him. Marcus's voice was firm and sure, his eyes never leaving hers. "You may kiss your bride," Reverend Peters announced with a smile. Marcus hesitated for just a moment, giving Eleanor a chance to pull away if she wished. Then he leaned in and pressed his lips to hers in a gentle kiss that sent warmth flooding through her body. It was brief, appropriate for their audience, but Eleanor felt the promise in it, the potential for more. The small gathering celebrated with a meal Eleanor had prepared earlier. The neighboring rancher, a man named Thomas Wilson, congratulated Marcus heartily. "About time you found yourself a wife, Garrett. This place needs a woman's touch." Thomas's wife, Martha, was kinder. She took Eleanor's hands in hers. "Welcome to Wyoming, dear. It can be lonely out here, but we women look after each other. My ranch is about 10 miles east. You must visit soon." "I would like that very much," Eleanor said, grateful for the offer of friendship. As the afternoon wore on and their guests departed, Eleanor found herself alone with Marcus for the first time as his wife. Her father had retired upstairs for a nap, and the ranch hands had returned to their work. She was wiping down the kitchen table when Marcus approached. "Eleanor," he said softly, "I want you to know that what I said before still stands. There is no pressure for anything to change tonight. I am content to wait until you are comfortable." Eleanor set down her cloth and turned to face him. "You are a good man, Marcus Garrett, better than I dared hope for. I am simply trying to be the husband you deserve." She stepped closer to him, her heart pounding. "May I ask you something? Anything? When you wrote that advertisement, what made you decide to seek a mail-order bride? A man like you could surely have found someone locally." Marcus was quiet for a moment, considering his answer. "The truth is, there are not many single women in these parts, and those who are here deserve someone better than a rough rancher who works from dawn to dusk. But more than that, I wanted someone who was choosing this life deliberately, who understood what she was getting into. I did not want to trick some young girl with romantic notions into a hard life she was not prepared for. And when I wrote that I needed to bring my father, I knew then that you were the right woman. Anyone who would place family above her own prospects, who would be honest about potential difficulties rather than hide them, that is someone with integrity. That is someone I could trust with my life and my heart." His words struck Eleanor deeply. "I was afraid you would reject me when you saw how frail Papa truly is." Marcus reached out and gently cupped her cheek, his calloused thumb brushing her skin. "I lost my entire family, Eleanor. I know the value of the people we love. Your father is a good man, and he will always have a home here for as long as he lives. That is my promise to you." Eleanor leaned into his touch, her eyes filling with tears. "I think I am falling in love with you, Marcus Garrett." His eyes widened with surprise and then softened with tenderness. "Then I am the most fortunate man in Wyoming Territory." He kissed her again, longer this time with more passion. Eleanor's arms came up around his neck, and she felt his strong arms encircle her waist, pulling her closer. When they finally broke apart, both were breathing heavily. "I do not want separate rooms anymore," Eleanor whispered. "I want to be your wife in every way." "Are you certain?" "I am certain." That night, for the first time, Eleanor went to Marcus's room instead of her own. He was patient and gentle, taking time to make sure she was comfortable. And by the end of the night, Eleanor felt truly married, truly bound to this man who had shown her such kindness. The following weeks fell into a pleasant rhythm. Eleanor managed the household, cooked for the ranch hands, and tended a vegetable garden she started behind the house. Her father continued to improve gradually, able to take short walks around the property, and even help with small tasks like mending tack or shelling beans. Marcus taught Eleanor to ride, starting her on a gentle mare named Daisy. The first few lessons were awkward, Eleanor gripping the saddle horn with white knuckles while Marcus led the horse in circles around the corral. But gradually she gained confidence, and soon they were riding out together to check on the herd. On one such ride, about 6 weeks after their marriage, they stopped by Crow Creek to rest the horses. Eleanor sat on a fallen log while Marcus filled their canteens with the cold creek water. "I love it here," Eleanor said, looking around at the cottonwoods rustling in the breeze, the mountains rising in the distance. "I never imagined Wyoming would feel like home so quickly." Marcus sat beside her, close enough that their shoulders touched. "I am glad. I worried it might be too harsh, too isolated for you." "It is harsh," Eleanor admitted, "but there is beauty in that harshness, and I have everything I need here. You, Papa, this ranch. It is more than I dreamed of having." Marcus took her hand, lacing his fingers through hers. "There is something I have been meaning to tell you, something I should have mentioned before, but I was afraid it might influence your decision to marry me." Eleanor's heart skipped. "What is it?" "I have money, Eleanor, quite a bit of it. My parents were not wealthy, but my father invested wisely, and I inherited everything when they died. I added to it over the years through careful management and some fortunate cattle sales. The ranch is profitable, yes, but I could live comfortably without working another day if I chose to." Eleanor frowned, confused. "Why would you keep that from me?" "Because I wanted you to choose me for myself, not for financial security. I needed to know you were committed to building a life together, not just seeking an easy situation." "Marcus Garrett, I would have married you if you did not have a penny to your name. Wealth means nothing if you are with someone who does not treat you with respect and kindness." He squeezed her hand. "That is why I love you, Eleanor. You see what truly matters." Eleanor's breath caught. It was the first time he had said he loved her. "You love me." "I do. I think I started falling in love with you the moment I saw you on that platform, standing so brave despite your obvious fear, refusing to leave your father behind. Every day since has only made me more certain." "I love you too," Eleanor said, her voice trembling with emotion. "So very much." Marcus pulled her into his arms and kissed her deeply, pouring all his feelings into that kiss. When they finally pulled apart, Eleanor was breathless and smiling. "There is something else I have been wanting to discuss with you," Marcus said, his expression becoming more serious. "Your father's health. He seems better than when you first arrived, but I think we should have a doctor examine him properly." There is a good physician in Cheyenne, Dr. Harrison. I would like to take William to see him, get his professional opinion on how we can best care for your father." Eleanor's eyes filled with grateful tears. "You would do that, Eleanor. He is family. Of course I would do that." The trip to Cheyenne was arranged for the following week. Marcus drove the wagon while Eleanor sat with her father, keeping him comfortable during the journey. Dr. Harrison was a kind man in his 50s who examined William thoroughly. "Your father has consumption," the doctor said gently to Eleanor after the examination. "It is fairly advanced, I am afraid. The best treatment is fresh air, good food, and rest. The climate here in Wyoming may actually help him, as it is drier than back east." "How long does he have?" Eleanor asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Dr. Harrison sighed. "It is difficult to say with certainty. With proper care, he could live another year, perhaps 2. But I must be honest with you, Miss Thompson, Mrs. Garrett. The disease will progress. There will come a time when he will need constant care." "We will give him whatever he needs," Marcus said firmly, speaking up for the first time. "Whatever the cost, whatever is required, he will have it." The doctor nodded approvingly. "Then he is fortunate to have such devoted family. I will give you some medication that may ease his coughing and help him rest better at night. Bring him back in 3 months so I can monitor his progress." On the ride back to the ranch, William was quiet. Finally, he spoke. "You should not have to watch me waste away, Eleanor. Neither of you should." "Papa, do not speak that way," Eleanor said fiercely. "We have time yet, and we will make the most of every day. You are exactly where you should be, with people who love you." William reached out and clasped Marcus's shoulder. "You are a good man, son. Take care of my girl when I am gone." "I will, sir. You have my word." As autumn arrived, painting the cottonwoods gold and bringing crisp mornings, life on the ranch continued. William's health remained stable, neither improving nor worsening significantly. He spent his days on the porch, sometimes helping Eleanor with small tasks, sometimes just enjoying the view of the mountains. Eleanor discovered she was pregnant in October. She had suspected for a few weeks, but waited to be certain before telling Marcus. One evening after dinner, after her father had retired upstairs, she took Marcus's hand and placed it on her still flat stomach. "There is a new member of the Garrett family growing here," she said softly. Marcus stared at her, his expression shifting from confusion to wonder. "A baby." "We are going to have a baby," Eleanor nodded, laughing at his stunned expression. "Yes, my love. I believe the baby will come in late spring." Marcus let out a whoop of joy and swept Eleanor into his arms, spinning her around. "A baby, Eleanor, you have made me the happiest man alive." He set her down carefully, suddenly concerned. "Should I have done that? Did I hurt you, the baby?" "We are fine," Eleanor assured him, touched by his immediate protectiveness. "I am healthy and strong, doctor." Harrison told Martha Wilson that a pregnant woman should continue her normal activities as long as she feels able. "Still, you must be careful. No more heavy lifting. I will hire another hand to help around the house." "Marcus, I am pregnant, not fragile." Women have been doing this since the beginning of time. But she was secretly pleased by his concern, by the way his hand kept returning to her stomach, as though he could not quite believe their child grew there. William was overjoyed by the news. "A grandchild," he said, his eyes filling with tears. "I had hoped but did not dare assume I would live to see it." "You will do more than see this baby," Eleanor insisted. "You will teach your grandchild everything you taught me. There is time yet, Papa." As winter set in, blanketing the ranch in snow, life slowed to a quieter pace. The ranch hands spent more time in the bunkhouse, venturing out only for essential tasks. Marcus still worked long hours, but he made sure to spend evenings with Eleanor and William, the three of them sitting by the fire while Eleanor knitted baby clothes and the men played chess. Eleanor's pregnancy progressed well. She felt healthy and strong, even as her belly swelled with the growing baby. Marcus was endlessly attentive, bringing her tea in the morning, insisting she rest in the afternoons, and rubbing her feet in the evenings when they swelled. One snowy evening in January, Eleanor woke to the sound of violent coughing from her father's room. She hurried across the hall to find William bent double, blood speckling his handkerchief. Marcus appeared moments later, still pulling on his shirt. "I will ride for the doctor," Marcus said immediately. "No," William gasped between coughs. "The snow is too deep, too dangerous. This will pass." But it did not pass. William's condition worsened over the following days despite the medication Dr. Harrison had provided. He could barely eat, his body racked with coughing fits that left him exhausted. Eleanor sat with him constantly, reading to him, talking to him, holding his hand. Marcus finally managed to get through the snow to bring Dr. Harrison to the ranch. The doctor examined William and then drew Eleanor and Marcus aside. "I am very sorry," he said gently. "The consumption has progressed significantly. I do not believe he has much time left. Days, perhaps a week if he is strong. Make him as comfortable as possible and ensure he is not alone." Eleanor felt the world tilt beneath her feet. Marcus caught her, his strong arms supporting her. "Thank you for coming, doctor," he said quietly. For the next 4 days, Eleanor rarely left her father's side. Marcus brought her meals, insisted she rest periodically for the baby's sake, and sat with William when Eleanor absolutely had to sleep. The ranch hands took turns checking in, each of them having grown fond of the kind old man who always had a story to share. On the 5th day, William rallied slightly, his eyes clearer than they had been. Eleanor sat holding his hand while Marcus stood nearby. "Eleanor, my darling girl," William said, his voice weak but steady, "you have been the greatest joy of my life. Your mother would be so proud of the woman you have become." "Papa, please do not," Eleanor whispered, tears streaming down her face. "Let me speak, child. I need you to know how happy I am. You found a good man, a man who loves you truly. You will have a beautiful baby soon, and your life will be full of love and purpose. I am ready to go, ready to be with your mother again. Do not mourn me over long." "I will miss you every day," Eleanor sobbed. William turned his gaze to Marcus. "Take care of her, son, and that grandbaby." "I am sorry I will not be here to meet the little one." "I will tell our child about you," Marcus promised, his own eyes bright with unshed tears. "They will know their grandfather was a good man who was loved very much." William smiled peacefully. "Thank you for giving us a home, Marcus. Thank you for making my daughter happy." As the sun set that evening, painting the snowy landscape in shades of pink and gold, William Thompson passed away peacefully with his daughter holding his hand and his son-in-law standing watch. Eleanor wept against Marcus's chest as he held her, his own tears falling into her hair. They buried William 2 days later in a spot on a hill overlooking the ranch, with a view of the mountains William had loved. The ranch hands dug the grave, breaking through the frozen ground with determination. Martha Wilson and her husband came, along with several other neighboring ranchers who had come to know William during his months in Wyoming. Reverend Peters spoke words of comfort, but Eleanor barely heard them. She stood with Marcus's arm around her, one hand on her swollen belly, and said goodbye to the man who had raised her, who had been her anchor through every storm. In the weeks that followed, Eleanor grieved deeply. Some days she could barely get out of bed, weighed down by sorrow. Marcus was endlessly patient, never pushing her, simply being there when she needed him. He took over more of the household tasks, learned to cook simple meals, and sat with her in the evenings while she cried. Slowly, gradually, Eleanor began to heal. The baby moving inside her reminded her that life continued, that joy and sorrow existed side by side. She began to talk about her father, sharing memories with Marcus, keeping William alive through her stories. "He was so proud of you," Marcus said one evening as they sat together, his hand resting on Eleanor's stomach. "The last time I spoke with him alone, just a few days before he died, he told me he had worried his whole life about what would happen to you after he was gone. But he said meeting me put his mind at ease. He knew you would be loved and cared for." "He loved you too," Eleanor said softly. "He told me you were the son he never had." Spring came early that year, melting the snow and coaxing green shoots from the earth. Eleanor's pregnancy entered its final weeks, and Dr. Harrison made several trips to the ranch to check on her progress. "Everything looks perfect," he assured them. "The baby should come any day now. Mrs. Wilson has agreed to attend the birth, along with her daughter who has some midwifery experience." The baby came on a warm May evening, just as the sun was setting. Eleanor's labor was long and difficult, lasting through the night and into the next day. Martha Wilson and her daughter Mary stayed with her throughout, while Marcus paced downstairs, driving the ranch hands crazy with his nervous energy. Finally, as dawn broke on the second day, a baby's cry filled the house. Marcus took the stairs 2 at a time, bursting into the bedroom to find Eleanor exhausted but smiling, cradling a small bundle. "A son," Eleanor said softly. "We have a son, Marcus." Marcus approached slowly, almost reverently, looking down at the tiny red face of his child. "He is perfect," he breathed. "Absolutely perfect. I want to name him William," Eleanor said. "After my father, William Marcus Garrett." Marcus's eyes filled with tears. "Your father would be honored." Little William, called Billy from the start, was a healthy, strong baby with his father's dark hair and his mother's green eyes. Marcus was completely smitten, spending hours just watching the baby sleep, marveling at his tiny fingers and toes. As Eleanor recovered from the birth, she found herself overwhelmed by love for her small family. Marcus was a devoted father, getting up in the night to bring Billy to her for feeding, walking the floor with the baby when he fussed, and singing terribly off-key lullabies that somehow always worked. One evening, when Billy was about 2 months old, Eleanor stood in the doorway watching Marcus hold their son. He was sitting in the rocking chair William had favored, gently rocking while Billy slept against his chest. The love on Marcus's face, the tenderness with which he held their child, made Eleanor's heart swell. Marcus looked up and caught her watching. "What are you thinking about?" he asked softly. "How lucky I am," Eleanor said, coming to sit on the arm of the chair. "When I got on that stagecoach in Pennsylvania, I was terrified. I thought I was entering into a business arrangement, nothing more. I never imagined I would find this, a real home, a husband I loved desperately, and now a beautiful son." Marcus shifted Billy carefully and reached up to take Eleanor's hand. "I am the lucky one. I was alone for so long, going through the motions of living but not really living at all. You and William brought life back into this house, filled it with love and laughter. And now Billy." He looked down at his sleeping son with wonder. "I never knew my heart could hold this much. My father told me, near the end, that he could die happy knowing I had found you. He said every father's greatest wish is to know his children are loved and cared for. You gave him that peace, Marcus." "He gave me a family," Marcus said simply. "I will be forever grateful to him for raising such an extraordinary daughter." As the months passed, Billy grew from a tiny infant into a chubby, happy baby who brought joy to everyone on the ranch. The ranch hands competed for the privilege of holding him, and even the gruffest cowboy would grin foolishly when Billy laughed. Eleanor settled fully into her role as wife, mother, and ranch mistress. She expanded her garden, started keeping chickens, and became known throughout the county for her excellent cooking. Martha Wilson became a close friend, and soon Eleanor was part of a network of ranch wives who supported each other through the challenges of frontier life. Marcus's ranch continued to prosper. He made good decisions about breeding stock and land use, and his reputation for honest dealing brought him steady business. But his greatest pride was his family. He never failed to tell Eleanor he loved her, never took for granted the miracle of having her and Billy in his life. When Billy was a year old, Eleanor discovered she was pregnant again. Marcus was overjoyed, though this time he was even more protective, remembering how difficult her first labor had been. "I am fine," Eleanor assured him repeatedly. "If anything, I feel stronger this time." Their second child, a daughter they named Sarah after Marcus's late sister, was born on a crisp October afternoon. The birth was faster and easier than Billy's, and Sarah emerged with a head of red gold hair and lungs that announced her arrival to the entire ranch. "She has your determination," Marcus laughed as Sarah wailed indignantly at being removed from her warm nest. Billy, now a toddling 17-month-old, was fascinated by his baby sister. He would pat her head gently and say "baby" with great pride, as though he had personally created her. The years that followed were full and happy. The ranch thrived, the children grew, and Eleanor and Marcus's love deepened with each passing season. They added on to the house, building a wing for the growing family. They welcomed a third child, another son they named James, and then a fourth, a daughter called Grace. Eleanor made regular visits to her father's grave, bringing wildflowers in the summer and evergreen branches in the winter. She told him about his grandchildren, about the life she and Marcus had built, about how happy she was. Sometimes Marcus came with her, standing quietly with his hand on her shoulder while she talked to the man who had brought her to Wyoming. On their 10th wedding anniversary, Marcus took Eleanor back to the spot by Crow Creek where they had first declared their love. The children were with Martha Wilson for the day, giving them rare time alone. "You remember that day?" Marcus asked, pulling Eleanor close. "I was so nervous about telling you about the money, afraid you would be angry I had kept it from you." "I remember thinking you were foolish," Eleanor said with a smile, "as if money could matter compared to what you had already given me. You accepted my father without question, treated him like family from the first moment. You gave him dignity and love in his final months. That was worth more than all the money in the world." "He was easy to love," Marcus said, "just like his daughter." Eleanor turned in his arms to face him. "When I stepped off that stagecoach, I thought I knew what my life would be. A practical arrangement, a way to survive. I never dreamed I would find this, a love so deep it sometimes takes my breath away." "Every day I thank God you answered my advertisement," Marcus said, cupping her face in his hands. "Every single day." He kissed her then, long and deep, pouring 10 years of love into that kiss. When they finally broke apart, both were smiling. "Should we head back?" Eleanor asked. "The children will be getting restless." "Let us stay a little longer," Marcus said, pulling her down to sit beside him on the bank. "Just you and me like that first time." They sat together in comfortable silence, watching the creek flow past, the cottonwoods rustling overhead. Eleanor leaned against Marcus's solid warmth and thought about the journey that had brought her here. The fear and uncertainty, the grief of losing her father, and the unexpected joy of finding true love. "You ever regret it?" Marcus asked suddenly. "Leaving Pennsylvania, coming all this way to marry a stranger?" "Never," Eleanor said firmly. "Not for a single moment. This is where I was meant to be, with you raising our children on this beautiful land. This is home, Marcus. You are home. Marcus kissed the top of her head. I love you, Eleanor Garrett. I love you too, always and forever. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in brilliant shades of orange and pink, they walked back to the ranch hand in hand. In the distance, they could see the house, smoke rising from the chimney, the barn and outbuildings solid and permanent against the landscape. Their home, built on a foundation of love and family, acceptance and compassion. That evening, after the children were tucked into bed and the house was quiet, Eleanor stood at the window of the bedroom she shared with Marcus, looking out at the moonlit landscape. Marcus came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. "What are you thinking about?" he murmured. "How beautiful it is here. How fortunate we are." "We are fortunate," Marcus agreed. "But we also worked for this, Eleanor. We chose to build this life together. That is not luck. That is commitment and love." Eleanor turned in his arms, reaching up to touch his face. "Do you know what my father said to me that last day when he was still lucid enough to talk? He said he had never believed in fate, but meeting you made him reconsider. He said you were exactly what I needed, and I was exactly what you needed, and the fact that we found each other across all that distance felt like the hand of God at work." "I believe he was right," Marcus said softly. "I put that advertisement in the paper not really expecting anything to come of it. And then your letter arrived, honest and straightforward, telling me exactly what your situation was. Most women would have hidden the fact that they came with an ailing father, but you put it right up front. That honesty caught my attention. And then when I saw you on that platform, holding your father's hand, so brave despite your fear, I knew." "Knew what?" "That you were mine. That somehow, against all odds, the woman I had been waiting for had found me." Eleanor felt tears prick at her eyes. Even after 10 years, Marcus could still move her to tears with his words. "I felt it too, that first moment. And then when you said my father was family now too, when you said it with such conviction, I started falling in love with you right then." Marcus kissed her gently. "Come to bed, my love. Tomorrow we'll be busy with the children." They lay together in the darkness, Eleanor's head on Marcus's chest, his arm around her. This simple intimacy, the comfort of his presence, was something Eleanor never took for granted. She had seen too many marriages of convenience, partnerships without real affection, to not appreciate what she and Marcus had. "Marcus," she said softly. Thank you for giving my father a home, for treating him with such kindness. He died knowing I was loved and cared for. That was a gift beyond measure. He was family, Eleanor, and family looks after each other no matter what." As Eleanor drifted off to sleep, safe in her husband's arms, she thought about the scared young woman who had arrived in Cheyenne 10 years ago, uncertain of her future but determined to do right by her father. That woman could never have imagined the happiness that awaited her, the love she would find with a kind-hearted rancher who understood that family meant everything. The years continued to pass, each one bringing its own joys and challenges. Billy grew into a strong, capable boy who loved working with his father on the ranch. Sarah was bright and spirited, with a talent for riding that impressed even the ranch hands. James was quieter, content to help his mother in the garden or sit with a book. And Grace, the baby, brought laughter and light to every situation. Eleanor taught her children about their grandfather William, keeping his memory alive through stories. She told them about his courage in leaving everything familiar to give his daughter a better life, about his kindness and wisdom, about how their father had welcomed him without hesitation. "That is what family does," she would tell them. "We take care of each other, no matter what. Your grandfather taught me that, and your father showed him that kindness in return. Now we pass that lesson on to you." When Billy was 12, He asked to visit his grandfather's grave alone. Eleanor watched from the porch as her son walked up the hill, carrying wildflowers he had picked himself. Marcus came to stand beside her. He wanted to talk to William about becoming a rancher, Marcus said quietly. He was not sure if he was capable of handling the responsibility. I told him his grandfather would tell him that capability comes from trying, from learning, from not being afraid to fail. "You are a good father," Eleanor said, leaning against him. "I learned from the best. Your father showed me what real strength looks like. Not physical strength, but the strength to keep going even when your body is failing, the strength to put your child's needs before your own, the strength to face death with grace and peace. That is the kind of man I want to be, the kind of man I want our sons to become." Eleanor's eyes filled with tears. "He would be so proud of you, Marcus, and so proud of our children. He worried so much about what would happen to me after he was gone, whether I would be happy. If he could see us now, see this beautiful family we have created, he would know his worries were for nothing." "He knows," Marcus said with certainty. "Somehow, wherever he is, he knows." As the children grew older and more independent, Eleanor found herself with more time to pursue her own interests. She started a small business making preserves and baked goods to sell in Cheyenne, her products becoming popular among the town's residents. The extra income was not necessary, given Marcus's successful ranch, but Eleanor enjoyed having something that was entirely hers. Marcus encouraged her entrepreneurship, proud of his wife's business acumen. He helped her set up a proper kitchen in one of the outbuildings, complete with a large stove and plenty of workspace. On market days, he would drive her into town, helping load and unload her goods, staying by her side as she sold her wares. "You do not have to stay," Eleanor told him one market day. "I know you have business of your own to attend to." "I like being here," Marcus said simply. "I like watching people's faces when they taste your food, seeing them come back week after week. I am proud of you, Eleanor. You have built something from nothing, just like I did with the ranch. We are a good team." Eleanor squeezed his hand. "The best team." Their marriage continued to be strong, built on mutual respect, deep affection, and genuine partnership. They disagreed sometimes, as all couples do, but they had learned to talk through their differences, to listen to each other's perspectives. The foundation of trust and love they had built in those early days remained solid. When Billy turned 18, he officially became Marcus's partner in running the ranch. Father and son worked side by side, Billy learning everything Marcus could teach him about cattle, horses, land management, and business. Sarah, at 16, announced she wanted to be a veterinarian, a shocking ambition for a young woman, but Eleanor and Marcus supported her dreams. "If that is what you want, we will find a way to make it happen," Marcus told his daughter. "You are as capable as any man, Sarah. Never let anyone tell you otherwise." James, at 14, showed an interest in law and justice. And Grace, still just 10, changed her mind daily about what she wanted to be when she grew up. One evening, the whole family gathered for dinner, now a loud and lively affair with 4 nearly grown children and the ranch hands who often joined them. Eleanor looked around the table, her heart full. This was what her father had wanted for her. This noisy, messy, beautiful life surrounded by people she loved. After dinner, when the children had scattered to their various activities, Eleanor and Marcus took their traditional evening walk. At 60 and 54, respectively, they were still healthy and active, though they moved a bit slower than they once had. They walked to William's grave, as they did several times a week. Someone had left fresh flowers, probably Sarah, who often visited her grandfather's resting place. 20 years, Marcus said softly. Has it really been 20 years since he passed? 20 years this spring, Eleanor confirmed. Sometimes it feels like yesterday, other times it feels like a lifetime ago. You still miss him. Every day. But the pain has softened over the years, replaced by gratitude for the time we had, and by joy in knowing he got to see me happy before he died. That was his greatest wish, Marcus. He just wanted to know I would be all right. Marcus pulled her close. You are more than all right, my love. You are extraordinary. As they stood there in the fading light, Eleanor thought about the journey that had brought her here. The desperate decision to answer a mail-order bride advertisement, the fear of bringing her ailing father, the relief when Marcus had welcomed them both. It had been the beginning of everything, the first step toward this rich, full life. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if I had not answered your advertisement? Eleanor asked. If I had chosen differently, I try not to, Marcus said honestly. The thought of a life without you, without our children, is unbearable. You are the best thing that ever happened to me, Eleanor. You and William both. He gave me a chance to show that I was not just a rough rancher, that I could be part of a real family. And you gave me love, partnership, and 4 incredible children. I am the most fortunate man alive. I am fortunate too, Eleanor said. I came here expecting nothing more than security and perhaps respect. Instead, I found everything I ever dreamed of and more. I found love, Marcus. Real, deep, lasting love. The kind of love my parents had, the kind I always hoped to find but feared I never would. They stood together in silence for a few more moments, then walked hand in hand back to the house. Inside, they could hear the children laughing, probably playing some game or arguing over something trivial. The sounds of home, of family, of life. That night, as Eleanor prepared for bed, she caught sight of herself in the mirror. She was 54 years old, her dark hair now streaked with silver, lines at the corners of her eyes from years of laughter and sun. She looked like a woman who had lived, who had loved, who had known both sorrow and joy. Marcus came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist and meeting her eyes in the mirror. You are as beautiful now as the day I first saw you on that platform in Cheyenne. Eleanor laughed. You are either lying or blind, my love. I am no longer the young woman you married. You are better, Marcus insisted. You are the mother of my children, my partner in building this ranch, my companion through every joy and sorrow. Every line on your face tells a story of our life together. How could you be anything but beautiful to me? Eleanor turned in his arms to kiss him. After 30 years of marriage, his kisses still made her heart race, still made her feel cherished and desired. I love you, Marcus Garrett, she whispered against his lips. I love you, Eleanor Garrett, today, tomorrow, and forever. As the years continued to pass, Marcus and Eleanor watched their children grow into adults. Billy married a neighboring rancher's daughter and brought her to live at the ranch, where he and Marcus continued to work side by side. Sarah fought against convention and social expectations to pursue her dream, eventually becoming one of the few female veterinarians in Wyoming, earning respect through her skill and determination. James became a lawyer and moved to Denver, returning home often with his wife and children. And Grace married a schoolteacher and opened a school in Cheyenne, dedicated to educating both boys and girls to the highest standard. Marcus and Eleanor became grandparents many times over, their house once again filled with the sounds of children playing. They watched with pride and joy as their grandchildren grew, passing on the same lessons of family, loyalty, and love that William had taught Eleanor, and that she and Marcus had taught their children. On their 40th wedding anniversary, the entire family gathered at the ranch for a celebration. Children and grandchildren came from near and far, filling every corner of the house. There was music and laughter, good food and better company. As the sun set, everyone gathered outside for a photograph, 3 generations of Garretts standing together. Eleanor stood at the center, Marcus's arm around her waist, surrounded by their children and grandchildren. She thought about the scared young woman who had arrived in Wyoming with her dying father, unsure of what the future held. She could never have imagined this abundance of love and life. Later that evening, after the younger children had been put to bed and the adults sat around talking quietly, Billy raised his glass. "I want to propose a toast," he said, "to my parents who showed us all what true love and partnership looks like. Dad, you took a chance on a mail-order bride and her ailing father. You welcomed them both without hesitation, treated grandfather William like family from the first moment. You taught us that family is not just about blood, it is about choice and commitment and love. And Mom, you came here not knowing what you would find, and you built a life of strength and grace. You taught us to be brave, to stand up for what we believe in, to never give up on our dreams. Together, you have given us the greatest gift any children could receive, the example of a marriage built on true love and respect." Everyone raised their glasses, and Eleanor felt tears streaming down her face. Marcus pulled her close, and she could feel him trembling with emotion. "Thank you," Marcus said, his voice thick. "All of you, for being here, for building your own lives and families. You have given Eleanor and me more joy than we ever dreamed possible." Eleanor thought about her father, wished he could be here to see this gathering, to meet his great-grandchildren, to know that the choice she made 40 years ago had led to all of this. But in a way, she thought, he was here. He lived on in her memories, in the stories she had told her children, in the lessons of family and love that had been passed down through generations. That night, alone in their room, Eleanor and Marcus lay together in the darkness. They were both 70 now, their bodies slower and more fragile than they once were, but their love was stronger than ever. "You remember what you said to me that first day?" Eleanor asked softly. "When you saw my father and I tried to tell you we could find other arrangements." "I said he was family now too," Marcus recalled. "I meant it then, and I mean it now. Welcoming William was the best decision I ever made because it showed you that I understood what truly mattered. It showed you that I could be the kind of husband, the kind of man you deserved. You were always that man, Marcus. You just needed the opportunity to show it." They drifted off to sleep, still holding hands, a habit of 40 years. Eleanor's last thought before sleep claimed her was of gratitude, for the love she had found, for the family she and Marcus had built, for every moment of this extraordinary life. The final years of Marcus and Eleanor's lives were peaceful ones. They gradually turned over more responsibilities to Billy and his wife, content to spend their days with each other and their grandchildren. They took slow walks around the ranch, visited William's grave regularly, and sat on the porch in the evenings, watching the sun set over the mountains. Marcus passed away first, at the age of 76, dying peacefully in his sleep with Eleanor beside him. The loss devastated Eleanor, but she took comfort in their children and grandchildren, in the legacy of love they had built together. She lived for 5 more years, active and engaged until nearly the end. On a warm spring morning, surrounded by her children, Eleanor took her last breath. Her final words were, "Tell your father I am coming, and tell Grandpa William I kept my promise. I built a beautiful life." They buried Eleanor beside Marcus, on the hill overlooking the ranch, not far from William's grave. 3 generations gathered to say goodbye to the woman who had come to Wyoming as a frightened mail-order bride and stayed to build a dynasty of love. Billy, now in his 50s and the patriarch of the family, stood at his mother's grave and spoke. "My mother used to tell us that family is everything, that we take care of each other no matter what. She learned that from her father, and my father showed them both what it meant through his actions. When Mom arrived here with Grandpa William, sick and dependent, Dad did not hesitate. He said, "He is family now, too," 4 simple words that changed everything, that set the foundation for everything this family has become. We honor their memory by living those words, by taking care of each other, by choosing love over convenience, by building lives of meaning and purpose. The family stood together as the sun set, painting the Wyoming sky in brilliant colors. 3 graves on the hill, 3 people who had loved deeply and built something lasting. The ranch continued on, passed down through generations, along with the story of the mail-order bride who brought her aging father and the compassionate rancher who welcomed them both, who understood that family is not about perfection or convenience, but about showing up, about commitment, about love that endures through every challenge. In the end, Eleanor and Marcus's love story was not just about 2 people falling in love. It was about choosing to build a life together, about honoring commitments, about treating others with dignity and respect. It was about William, who sacrificed everything for his daughter's happiness. About Marcus, who had the wisdom to see that welcoming William was not a burden but an opportunity. And about Eleanor, who had the courage to choose love over fear, to build a new life in an unfamiliar place, to honor her father while also embracing her future. Their legacy lived on in their children and grandchildren, in the ranch that still bore the Garrett name, in the stories passed down through generations. The story of how Eleanor Thompson came to Wyoming in 1878 as a mail-order bride, how Marcus Garrett saw past convention to welcome her and her ailing father, and how together they built something that lasted far beyond their own lives. It was a love story for the ages, set against the harsh beauty of the Wyoming frontier, a testament to the power of compassion, the importance of family, and the enduring nature of true love. Every spring, when wildflowers bloomed on the hill where Eleanor, Marcus, and William rested, their descendants would gather to remember, to honor, and to commit once again to the values those 3 people had embodied, the understanding that family is everything, that love requires courage and sacrifice, and that the greatest legacy anyone can leave is a life lived with integrity, compassion, and devotion to those we hold dear.